1, 2, 3.
So if you come across doing so good there. Also, is this a new mic? Oh, okay. But they can't all be right, can they? That's awesome. I was like, oh.
All right, we are ready when you are.
Cool, let's do it. I need to tell you about one of the scariest days in my entire life. Back when I was in college, my wife, Michaela, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I decided that we were gonna go on this hike with a friend to the top of this mountain to get pictures. Now, none of us have ever been on this trail before to the top of the mountain, but we figured, hey, it should be clearly marked, right? No biggie. So we headed out, and after driving for a while, we found this place to park right next to the start of a trailhead. And we started walking and walking and walking. And we started to wonder why it was even taking us so long to get to the top of this mountain. And it was at that moment, y'all, I took my eyes off of the ground from where I was walking, and I looked right up and I saw it. A bear. No more than like 50 yards ahead of us, directly in our path, was not only a mama bear, but her cub as well. So now, I would never claim to be an outdoorsman, but I do know this. When there's a mama bear, she will do anything to protect her cub if they feel threatened in any way. So if you come across one, you get out of there as fast as you can. And that's exactly what we did. I quietly backed up, alert Michaela, my friend, of our situation, and we started to head back down the trail. And that would have been hard enough, but we had hiked for so long that the sun was starting to set now as we hiked back. So there we are, hiking back to our car in the dark with a mama bear and her cub somewhere behind us. Now, obviously we made it back safely, but only to find out that we had hiked hours on the wrong trail. And that's not how the story ends. I'm actually gonna tell you the rest of it in just a second, but first, isn't it crazy how one wrong trail led us away from where we were trying to go, from what we were trying to achieve? There was only one trail, one way up the mountain, and we missed it. Now here's a fun fact. Did you know that there's about 4,300 different religions in the world? Each of these religions claim to be the way to be free from sin and suffering and to experience life with God, but they can't all be right, can they? Because people are messed up. We hurt each other, we lie to each other, steal from each other, we make fun of each other, and throughout the Bible, we are even told that people are dead because of the sin in our lives. But you don't have to go to the Bible to know that people are messed up. You can just scroll through social media, check out the news to find that out. So what's the cure? How do we get rid of the sin in our lives? Well, just like there was only one path for us to take up the mountain, there's only one cure for sin. There's only one way to be free from sin and to experience life with God. Jesus talked about this one way, and he says it's this. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, meaning God, except through me. That's John 14:6. Jesus doesn't say, I am one way to God. He doesn't say I'm most of the way to God. He says, I am the way to God. It's singular. It's meaning that only Jesus can rescue. He's the only one that can rescue us from the sin and brokenness of this world. He is the one way to get to that relationship with God. He is the one way up the mountain. So you might be thinking, okay, Joel, but how do we know that Jesus was right and he's just not one of those other 4,300 other religions? And that's a fair question. The answer is actually found, though, in history. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul, one of the earliest followers of Jesus, tells us that Jesus was seen by over 500 people after he was raised from the dead. Paul even says that, at least at the time that he was writing this letter to the Corinthians, many of those 500 witnesses that saw Jesus after he had died were still alive. This was Paul's way of saying, don't just take my word for it, go around, ask others. We're not making this up. And that's huge, y'all. No one else had ever done what Jesus did before. Buddha died and he stayed dead. Muhammad died and has stayed dead. Every other religious leader who has died and stayed dead. Only Jesus beat death. And he did that to show us that he truly is the only one that we can be saved by. Now, a lot of people have a problem with us saying that Jesus is the only way to be saved. And if Jesus was only here for some people, that would completely make sense. That would be a huge problem, actually. But Jesus isn't just for some people. In fact, Jesus is actually for everyone. Jesus came so that anyone who believes can be rescued. Paul, the New Testament author we just talked about a second ago, actually puts it like this when he was writing to a church in Rome. This is what he says in Romans 10:13. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Y'all, it's as simple as that. Everyone means everyone, not just the first 15,000, not anyone who calls in the next 24 hours, not a specific group of people, everyone. Now, remember that story I was sharing about in the beginning? Here's how it ended. When we got back to our college campus, we told our friends about what had happened. And throughout that experience, one of our other friends who had been to the top of this mountain before said that she would show us the way to go. So we all pack into the car a couple weeks later and we drive back almost to the exact same spot where we were last time. But turns out the path that we were looking for was just a couple extra minutes down the road from where we had stopped the first time. With this friend's help, we got the chance to go up the mountain, take in the awesome views, and get those pictures. Now, why did I share that ending with you? Well, it's because if Jesus is the only one who can rescue, and because he's here for everyone, then we have to share that with others. Because your friends need Jesus. Your family, your coaches, your teachers, they all need Jesus. Everyone needs Jesus to be rescued. This is why Paul continues in his letter to the Romans by saying this, but how can they call on him to be saved unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him if they have never heard about him? From Romans 10:14. What Paul is saying is that in order to be rescued by Jesus, people need to be told about him. And don't miss this, Collide. You might be the only one who shares Jesus with others. You might be the only other Jesus follower others in your life know. We can't assume that someone else will tell them. As followers of Jesus, it is our responsibility to share that message with others, to tell others about Jesus. This is what Jesus asked of his closest followers to do right before he leaves to go back into heaven. He says, go and make disciples of all nations. That means go and share Jesus with others, because Jesus is the only one who can rescue, and we all need rescued. So, who do you need to share Jesus with this week? Who is it that needs to know that they can be rescued from the brokenness of our world? Students, we're cheering you on, and we know that you guys got this. Love y'all. We'll see you next time.